What's up guys, Shane Starnes here with DroidModderX. I've been using the iPhone X as my main device for the past week, and I have to say I'm a little more than disappointed with my experience. Now that being said, maybe I'm a little biased. I am an Android fanboy at heart, and I've been using Android devices for the past 5 or 6 years. Now there were a few things that I really did like about the iPhone X. I really had a lot of fun with the Animojis.
Woo, I stay bad, girl.
I thought that the camera on the phone was a great camera, and I think that it can compete with the Pixel 2 and 2 XL, although I think those phones have a better overall camera. And while I enjoy the oversaturated colors on displays like the Galaxy Note 8, I actually found the toned down colors on the iPhone X's display to be pleasing to the eye. While I did find some things that I liked about the iPhone X, the overall experience was underwhelming and disappointing. These are the top 10 things that I didn't like about the iPhone X. Let's go ahead and get started. So being an Android fanboy by now, I'm used to glass backs on phones, but one thing that I really liked from the Apple iPhone lineup was the metal build on their previous phones. So I didn't really like the glass back on the iPhone X. I'm glad that it allowed for wireless charging, which is something that I did like about the iPhone X, but with that glass back, you get tons of smudges, and it just seems like it is a grease magnet. Not only that, it's super slippery. To combat slipperiness and greasiness on the iPhone X, I was able to use a Slick Wraps. Also, big shout outs to Slick Wraps for sponsoring this video. Not only do Slick Wraps protect your phone from scratches, they also relieve your phone of nasty fingerprints and add a bit of flair. And they have something for every taste, from the natural series to the galactic series to the animalactic series. There's a skin for everyone, and I'll be sure to include a link in the description of where you can pick up your Slick Wraps today. Be sure to use that link to receive $5 off your purchase. The glass back is okay as long as you're able to put a Slick Wraps or a case on it. I didn't really like the stainless steel sides. First of all, I've only been using this phone for about a week, and the stainless steel sides are all scratched up, which that was a given. We knew that was going to happen, but it also has like some sort of coating on it, which just makes the phone feel cheap. So it actually feels like you're holding plastic. It doesn't really feel like you're holding metal. You don't get that cold metal feel that you normally get from metal. It feels like you're holding plastic. And for a $1,200, $1,300 phone, you don't want to feel like you're holding plastic. You want to feel like you're holding a premium metal device. Maybe brushed aluminum would have been a better option. So I really liked Face ID when it worked, and it worked a lot of the time. In fact, it even worked when I was in pitch black, dark rooms, and that's something that can't be said for other Android phones on the market like the LG V30 or the Galaxy Note 8. That being said, I really liked the Facial ID when it worked. More than 50% of the time for me, it just didn't work. I was using the pen in some cases more than I was using the actual Face ID because I'd put the phone up, it wouldn't recognize my face, and I'd have to enter in the pin. Half the time it did work, and when it did work, it was a little sluggish. It just wasn't as fast as Touch ID on previous iPhones. You weren't able to unlock the phone if it was laying flat on a desk. You'd have to pick it up and put it near your face so that it could register your face. Just having the extra option of fingerprint scanner would be great for me. I know that that is not the direction that Apple's headed. In fact, we'll probably never see a fingerprint scanner on an iPhone again. So having come from the Pixel 2 XL, I noticed quite a bit of jank on the iPhone X, and that may be an iOS 11 problem and not so much an iPhone X problem. The iPhone X does have that A9 Bionic chip and has 3 GB of RAM, so theoretically it should be incredibly fast. However, I found that jumping to the home screen from an application and then scrolling through the home screen to find another app, things were a little sluggish, and I did notice lag going from screen to screen. I also noticed that if I open an application and went back to it, later on in the day, it would have to reload that application from scratch. Now, this phone has 3 GB of RAM, and it should be able to hold a pretty good bit of applications and storage. But for me, it seemed like, especially with apps like the Facebook app, you'd open it, you'd use it, and then you'd close it, go to something else, and then go back to the Facebook app, and you'd have to reload that application from scratch. Little things like that made the phone feel slower overall, and it definitely was not as fast, and it didn't perform as well, in my opinion, as a device like the Pixel 2 XL. So I kept hearing that the notch on the front of the display is something that you would just get used to over time, and in the week that I've been using the iPhone X, I've just not been able to get used to that notch. It just stands out like a sore thumb, and every time I see the notch, I think of that Samsung ad where the dude has that crazy haircut that resembles the notch, and I just can't get that image out of my head. Not only does the notch stick out like a sore thumb, but it kind of gets in the way of certain applications. So like say for instance, if you're in Instagram, you're watching a video and you try to turn up the volume or turn down the volume, it's gonna block the volume slider. And then in other applications, if you go into say the Netflix app and you double tap to fill up the entire screen, that notch is gonna block a portion of the screen. So not only are you cutting out some of the space on the video itself, but the notch is going to block some of the video. Maybe they'll figure out a way to utilize the notch a little better, but for me, it just kind of sticks out and I'm not a huge fan. I found myself not at all missing the physical home button. Being able to swipe up to get back to home from any application was great. I'm even able to bring up the multitasker by just swiping up and pausing. The only thing that I kind of hated about the gestures is the fact that you can't swipe away apps to clear them. When you're in the multi-tab view, you have to actually press and hold the application and then click the X button. It seems a little counterintuitive. I would love the option to just be able to swipe apps away. I found that overall, many applications are not optimized for the display on the iPhone X, and I know that eventually they will be, but for now, it seems like most of the apps that I'm encountering have a huge forehead and chin. The apps are just cropped down quite a bit, and you're not able to take full advantage of that 5.8-inch display. Why have the big display if all the applications are going to be cropped down and they're going to be a smaller view anyhow? That's not really Apple's fault. They kind of went outside of the mold with this display. It's just going to take months for developers to catch up and have all of their applications updated for this particular display. One other downside of having that notch at the top of the phone is that there's no space whatsoever to put a battery percentage in the notification panel. So it's really not that difficult to find your battery percentage. All you have to do is swipe down the control center and it's right there, but it's just one extra step. I'd like to be able to just look down at my phone and see the battery percentage without having to take an extra step to view that information. Is it just me, or is the iPhone X keyboard obnoxiously huge? So if I go into just a standard application, the keyboard takes up just about half of the display. If I view an application in landscape mode and I bring up the keyboard takes up pretty much all of the display and I can't even see what I'm typing. For me, it's a little much. I kind of wish that there was a way to maybe do like a one-handed mode on the keyboard and slim it down just a little bit so that I actually see the screen and see what I'm typing. That was just one other thing that kind of annoyed me about the iPhone X. So this is kind of a moot point at this point in time because the iPhone 8, the iPhone 7, neither of those had a headphone jack. But personally, I'm not ready for the lack of a headphone jack. I can say at least with the iPhone X, they did supply a pair of Lightning headphones, which I've been using. So I've actually been using those, which is great. But that being said, I'll be in the middle of watching a YouTube video or watching a show on Netflix, and I get that notification that pops up that says your battery's at 20%. And now all of a sudden I have to stop what I'm doing, I have to unplug my headphones, and I have to plug my phone into a charger. And that's one reason that I kind of wish that the headphone jack still existed on the iPhone X, but as I said, that is a moot point. It's never coming back on an iPhone. So I had been hearing this an awful lot, that the iPhone X had atrocious battery life, and for the first couple of days, battery life wasn't all that bad for me. In fact, I was getting pretty impressive battery life, up to 5 or 6 hours of screen on time. I noticed that any time that I pulled up the YouTube application or I pulled up Netflix or anything like that, the battery began to drain at a very rapid rate. The only time that I was able to get really good battery life is on a day where I wasn't using any kind of media application, I wasn't using any GPS. If I was just using my phone periodically to check emails or to do a little bit of light web browsing, then I was able to get a full day's use of the phone. Otherwise, I was plugging my phone in at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, having only gotten about 4 hours of screen on time, which for a phone that is this expensive, you would think that you should be able to get, all day battery life. Apple themselves are claiming 13 hours of video viewing over Wi-Fi, and I'm getting nowhere close to that. The very last problem that I have with the iPhone X is the price. And many of you are probably going to say that I shouldn't be complaining about the price on the iPhone X, but when you run into as many problems as I have consistently experienced, it doesn't seem like a $1,000 to $1,200 phone. It just doesn't really feel like it should be that expensive. It should be perfect. So there shouldn't be any bugs in the software. All aspects of the phone should work flawlessly at that price point, and I have found in my 1 week experience that that's just not the case. And I know things will get better, but if you're going to release a phone and it's going to be the most expensive phone on the market, then it should work as though we're the most expensive phone on the market. There are $500 phones out there that don't have the same types of bugs that the iPhone X has, and so for me, the iPhone X does not warrant the $1,000 to $1,200 price tag. All right, guys, that about wraps it up for this video. If you like the video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up. Subscribe to this channel for more content like this in the future. You can find more of me at droidmodderx.com. Follow me on Twitter at droidmodderx. Thanks, guys, for watching. Be blessed. I'll see you in the next one.